The truth about men who live alone without a girlfriend. What if everything you've been told about being alone is a lie? Society loves to paint a very specific picture of success. A man with a partner on his arm, a house full of laughter, and weekends spent sharing meals and memories. But what about the man who chooses solitude? Not because he's broken, not because he's bitter, but because he's found something deeper, something quieter, yet infinitely more powerful. In a world that equates loneliness with failure, there's a quiet rebellion unfolding in the lives of men who live alone without a girlfriend. And not out of circumstance, but by conscious design. These aren't lost souls scrolling through dating apps at 2 a.m. They're disciplined, grounded, and fiercely self-aware individuals who've discovered that true strength isn't built in the noise of relationships. It's forged in the silence of solitude. And the ancient Stoics? They saw it coming over 2,000 years ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote his most profound meditations alone in military camps. Seneca advised emperors while championing inner independence. Epictetus, born a slave, taught that freedom begins not in your circumstances, but in your mind. This isn't about rejecting love. It's about refusing to let love, or the lack of it, define your worth. If you've ever felt judged for choosing your own company, if you've wondered whether peace can be just as fulfilling as passion, or if you're simply curious about the hidden power of a life lived intentionally alone, then you're in the right place. Before we go deeper, do yourself a favor. Hit like, drop a comment below about your own experience with solitude. Subscribe so you don't miss what comes next, and stay until the end. Because what we're about to unpack might just reframe how you see freedom, strength, and happiness itself. Let's begin. Number 1, he masters the art of self-sufficiency. Let's cut through the noise. Most people aren't truly independent. They rely on others, not just for companionship, but for emotional regulation, daily structure, even basic decision-making. A partner becomes a crutch, someone to vent to after a bad day, someone to remind them to pay bills, someone to soften the edges of adulting. But the man who lives alone, he doesn't have that safety net. And that's precisely where his strength is forged. Self-sufficiency isn't about stubborn pride or rejecting help. It's about knowing, deep in your bones, that you can handle life on your own terms. When you live alone without a girlfriend by choice, every aspect of survival falls squarely on your shoulders. No one's cooking your meals, cleaning your space, or checking in to see if you've eaten. If you don't manage your finances, you're broke. If you neglect your health, no one notices until it's too late. That raw accountability might sound harsh, but it's also liberating. The Stoics revered this kind of autonomy. Seneca wrote, "He who needs least is richest." Think about that. True wealth isn't measured in possessions or relationships. It's measured in how little you need to feel complete. The self-sufficient man doesn't chase validation because he's already grounded in his own competence. He fixes his sink, plans his budget, and faces his fears without outsourcing his peace of mind to someone else. And here's the paradox. The more capable you become on your own, the more valuable you become to others. Not because you're trying to impress, but because you operate from a place of fullness, not lack. You don't enter relationships to fill a void. You share your life because you have something meaningful to offer. This level of independence doesn't happen overnight. It's built through small, consistent acts of responsibility, showing up for yourself when no one else is watching. Over time, those habits compound into unshakable confidence. You stop asking, "What would I do without her?" and start realizing, "I've already done everything by myself." Number 2, He embraces solitude as a source of strength. Let's be honest, most people are terrified of being alone, not just physically, but mentally. The moment silence creeps in, they reach for their phone, turn on the TV, or text someone just to feel connected. Why? Because solitude forces you to sit with yourself, and for many, that's the last place they want to be. But the man who lives alone without a girlfriend by choice, he doesn't run from silence. He leans into it. He understands what the Stoics knew intuitively. Solitude isn't emptiness. It's clarity. When you strip away the noise, the endless chatter, the social expectations, the performative aspects of relationships, you finally hear your own voice. And that's where real strength is born. Marcus Aurelius didn't write Meditations while surrounded by courtiers and admirers. He wrote it alone, often at dawn, before the weight of empire demanded his attention. In those quiet hours, he didn't just reflect, he refined his character. He asked hard questions. Am I living virtuously? Am I ruled by reason or reaction? That kind of introspection isn't possible when you're constantly distracted by others' needs, opinions, or emotional demands. For the modern man who chooses solitude, this same practice becomes daily armor. Without a partner to absorb his moods or buffer his discomfort, he learns to sit with uncertainty, boredom, even pain, without flinching. And in doing so, he builds mental resilience most will never access. He doesn't need constant stimulation because he's learned to find richness within. And this isn't isolation, it's intentional space. Think of solitude like a dojo, a training ground for the mind. Every moment alone is an opportunity to sharpen focus, clarify values, and align actions with purpose. The man who masters this doesn't fear being alone. He protects his solitude like a sacred resource. And here's the twist. The more comfortable he becomes with himself, the less he seeks validation through shallow connections. He'd rather spend an evening reading, journaling, or walking under the stars than forcing conversation just to avoid silence. That's not antisocial, that's self-respect. If you've ever felt judged for preferring your own company, know this. You're not broken. You're building something rare, a mind that stands firm, even in stillness. Drop a comment below. Do you see solitude as a burden or a gift? And if this insight hit home, don't forget to like. It tells YouTube this message matters. Number 3, he rejects societal timelines and scripts. From the moment we're old enough to understand stories, we're fed a very specific narrative. Grow up, find the one, get married, buy a house, have kids. Deviate from that path, especially as a man living alone past your 20s or 30s, and suddenly you're the subject of concerned glances, awkward questions at family dinners, or worse, pity. But here's the truth the Stoics would applaud. Your life is not a template to be filled out by others' expectations. The man who lives without a girlfriend isn't failing to meet a deadline. He's rejecting the entire notion that love, partnership, or companionship should be pursued on someone else's schedule. Society treats singledom like a temporary state, a holding pattern until you get it together. But what if solitude isn't a phase? What if it's a deliberate chapter, one that allows you to build your identity before sharing it with anyone else? Epictetus, who lived in near total simplicity, taught that we must distinguish between what's ours and what belongs to others. Your choices, yours. Your timeline, yours. The pressure to conform, that belongs to everyone else, and it's theirs to carry, not yours. Living alone gives you the rare freedom to define success on your own terms. Maybe your purpose this year isn't romance, it's launching a business, healing old wounds, traveling, or mastering a craft. Maybe your mission requires undivided focus, emotional bandwidth, or physical space that a relationship would dilute. And that's not selfish, it's strategic. The Stoics didn't chase external validation. They measured a life by its alignment with virtue, reason, and integrity, not by marital status or Instagram-worthy couple photos. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet never wrote about needing a partner to feel complete. His worth came from his actions, his discipline, his inner order. When you stop measuring your life against society's arbitrary milestones, something powerful happens. You reclaim your autonomy. You stop asking, "Why am I still single?" and start asking, "What do I want to become while I'm alone?" And that shift from shame to sovereignty is revolutionary. So if you've ever felt behind because you're not following the script, remember, the most extraordinary lives are often written off script. Number 4, he cultivates inner peace through discipline. In a world obsessed with external validation, likes, matches, relationship status updates, the man who lives alone without a girlfriend often discovers something radical. Peace doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from choosing yourself consistently every single day. But this peace isn't passive. It's not the quiet of avoidance or emotional numbness. It's the deep, steady calm that arises from disciplined living. A life structured not by chaos or impulse, but by intention. And this is where Stoicism shines as a practical philosophy, not just an ancient relic. Consider this. When you live alone, there's no one to blame for a messy kitchen, a missed deadline, or a wasted weekend. That accountability becomes a forge. You either descend into disorder, or you build routines that anchor your days. You wake up at the same time, you move your body, you eat well, you reflect, you work with purpose. These aren't glamorous acts, but they're the bedrock of inner stability. The Stoics called this ascesis, training. Just as an athlete trains their body, the philosopher trains their mind and habits. Seneca didn't preach virtue from comfort. He practiced it in exile, illness, and political turmoil. His peace wasn't dependent on circumstance. It was cultivated through daily discipline. For the modern solitary man, this means designing a life where external chaos can't easily shake his center. He knows that moods are fleeting, but systems endure. So he builds rituals, morning journaling to clarify his thoughts, evening walks to decompress, weekly reviews to assess his progress. These aren't rigid rules. They're guardrails that keep him aligned with his values. And here's the beautiful side effect. This discipline breeds freedom. When your baseline is order, you're not constantly reacting to emergencies of your own making. You have mental space to create, to think deeply, to rest without guilt. You're not waiting for someone else to complete your life. You're already living it, fully and deliberately. This kind of peace isn't found in distraction. It's earned in the quiet hours when no one's watching. When you choose growth over comfort, clarity over noise, consistency over convenience. If you've built a life of quiet discipline, comment below. What's one ritual that keeps you grounded? And if you believe peace is earned, not given, hit like. Let's normalize the unglamorous work of becoming unshakable. Number 5. He understands that love should be chosen, not needed. There's a dangerous myth floating through modern dating culture that we need love to be whole, that without a romantic partner, something is missing, like we're incomplete puzzles waiting for our final piece. But the Stoics would call this not just false, but dangerous. Because when you believe you need someone, you surrender your power. You become dependent. And dependency, no matter how sweetly wrapped in romance, erodes self-respect. The man who lives alone without a girlfriend and does so with clarity, knows a profound truth. Love should be an addition to your life, not the foundation of it. He doesn't seek a relationship to fill a void. He offers one from a place of fullness. And that changes everything. Think about it. When you're emotionally self-sufficient, you don't cling. You don't manipulate. You don't tolerate toxicity out of fear of being alone. You can walk away from what doesn't serve you because your peace isn't on the line. You're not begging for attention. You're choosing connection. That shift from need to choice is where real dignity lives. Marcus Aurelius put it plainly. When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. Notice, love comes last. It's part of a rich life, not the sole purpose of it. The Stoics didn't reject love. They rejected attachment. They understood that clinging to another person as your source of happiness makes you vulnerable to suffering when, not if, circumstances change. Living alone teaches you to decouple your worth from your relationship status. You learn to enjoy your own company so deeply that you stop viewing solitude as punishment. And when you do eventually open your life to someone, it's not because you're desperate. It's because you found someone worthy of sharing your already complete world. This mindset flips the script on modern dating. Instead of chasing validation, you become selective. Instead of performing to be loved, you simply are. And let others decide if they can meet you at that level. If you've ever walked away from a relationship because it didn't align with your values, not out of anger but calm clarity, you know this power. And if you believe love should be chosen, not needed, drop a comment below. Let's normalize emotional sovereignty. Number 6. He uses solitude to reclaim his identity. In relationships, especially long-term ones, it's easy to lose yourself. You start compromising not just on dinner plans or weekend trips, but on your values, your voice, even your sense of humor. You mold yourself to fit someone else's expectations, often without realizing it. But the man who lives alone, he has the rare luxury of uninterrupted self-discovery. Solitude becomes his mirror. Without the constant feedback loop of a partner's opinions, moods, or needs, he can finally ask, who am I when no one's watching? What do I truly believe? What kind of man do I want to become? This isn't navel-gazing, it's identity work. And the Stoics knew its value. Epictetus, born into slavery, taught that while others could control your body, they could never control your mind, unless you let them. Living alone is the modern embodiment of that principle. It's a declaration. I will define myself. Think about how rarely we get this space in adulthood. From school to work to social media, we're constantly performing for bosses, friends, family, algorithms. But in solitude, there's no audience, no applause, no judgment, just you and your choices. And in that raw honesty, you rebuild yourself from the inside out. Maybe you rediscover old passions you abandoned to please someone else. Maybe you confront limiting beliefs you inherited from your family or culture. Maybe you finally set boundaries you've avoided for years. Whatever it is, solitude gives you the silence necessary to hear your own truth and the courage to live by it. This reclamation isn't selfish. In fact, it's the opposite. A man who knows himself doesn't project his insecurities onto others. He doesn't seek partners to fix him or complete him. He shows up as a whole person, clear, grounded, and authentic. And that kind of presence is rare and magnetic. So if you've ever felt like you lost yourself in a relationship, know this: solitude isn't exile. It's homecoming. If you're on your own journey of self-reclamation, comment below. What part of yourself have you rediscovered in solitude? And if you believe knowing yourself is the ultimate power, hit like. Let's honor the quiet work of becoming who you were meant to be. Number 7. He prepares for the future without fear. Most people live in one of two extremes when it comes to the future. Either they're paralyzed by anxiety about what might go wrong, or they're blindly optimistic, assuming everything will work out if they just follow their heart. But the man who lives alone without a girlfriend, and does so with stoic clarity, walks a third path: prepared acceptance. He doesn't fear being alone forever, because he's already at peace with it. And paradoxically, that very peace makes him more open to genuine connection when it arises. Why? Because he's not desperate. He's not scanning every interaction for a potential partner. He's focused on building a life so meaningful that whether or not someone joins him becomes secondary. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, the practice of imagining worst-case scenarios not to induce fear, but to strip them of their power. Seneca advised his students to rehearse loss. What if I lose my wealth, my health, my loved ones? Not to dwell in dread, but to realize I can endure it. That mental exercise builds resilience. For the solitary man, this means he's already answered the question society keeps asking. What if you never find someone? And his answer isn't panic, it's calm certainty. Then I'll still have my integrity, my purpose, my peace. That mindset liberates him from the frantic energy that drives so much modern dating, the swiping, the performative vulnerability, the settling. Instead, he invests in what he can control: his character, his skills, his environment. He saves money not just for emergencies, but for freedom. He builds friendships that nourish him. He creates a home that reflects his values, not a temporary stopgap until the right one comes along. In doing so, he constructs a life that's robust, flexible, and deeply satisfying, regardless of relationship status. And here's the quiet confidence that emerges. He doesn't need the future to look a certain way to be happy now. He's already living well. If love enters his life, great. He'll welcome it with open arms and clear eyes. If not, he's still whole. That's not resignation, it's mastery. So what's the truth about men who live alone without a girlfriend? It's not that they're broken, not that they've given up, not that they're waiting for rescue. The truth is far more powerful. They've chosen themselves. In a culture that equates solitude with failure, these men have done something quietly revolutionary. They've built lives rooted in self-respect, discipline, and inner peace. They've rejected the script that says happiness requires partnership. They've embraced the Stoic ideal that virtue, reason, and integrity are enough. Living alone isn't about rejecting love. It's about refusing to let love become a crutch. It's about mastering your mind before sharing it. It's about knowing that your worth isn't determined by who's beside you, but by who you are when no one's watching. And perhaps most importantly, it's about freedom. The freedom to grow at your own pace, to define success on your own terms, and to walk through life with unshakable calm, whether you're surrounded by people or sitting in perfect silence. If you've resonated with any part of this journey, if you've ever felt judged for your choices, questioned your path, or simply wondered if peace could be enough, know this: you're not alone, and you're not behind. You're exactly where you need to be to build the life only you can live. Before you go, do 3 things. 1. Like this video. It helps others find this message. 2. Comment below. Tell us one thing you've learned about yourself through solitude. 3. Subscribe and hit the bell, because we're just getting started on redefining what it means to live well. Thank you for staying until the end. Your presence here matters. And remember, the most powerful relationships begin with the one you have with yourself.